I'm Bishop Darrell Watkins, and let's queer up politics. Trump administration removes rape protections for trans people in ICE custody. The Trump administration has eliminated key rape protections for transgender people held in ICE detention centers and U.S. prisons, escalating concerns across the queer community. New guidance from the Department of Homeland Security applies to several privately run ICE facilities where nearly 69,000 people are currently detained, a record high. At the same time, the Department of Justice is working to roll back rules designed to protect LGBTQ+ people from sexual abuse in prisons. According to the American Prospect, at least 6 ICE detention facilities have updated contracts to remove safeguards against rape and other protections for trans inmates. Facilities in Arizona, New Mexico, Georgia, and Texas have also ended safety measures and halted medical care for trans detainees. The changes cite Trump's executive order calling defending women from gender ideology extremism and removing diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility language. Bridget Crawford of Immigration Equality said, quote, "Trans asylum seekers are typically in the U.S. because they've already endured incredibly high levels of sexual assault. They're coming here for protection, and they find themselves in immigration detention, which by law cannot be punitive, but we see that it is," end quote. The change comes amid ongoing allegations of abuse, medical neglect, and wrongful deportations of transgender immigrants, drawing condemnation from politicians, advocates, and celebrities nationwide. We don't even have enough time for me to go on the screed and the rant and the crazy that I want to go on. First of all, rape as a form of torture, like reprehensible is not a good enough word to describe that. It's completely evil, and that's what this amounts to. This is an inviting assault and abuse for already vulnerable people, the most vulnerable people in the system. And so if anyone needs protection and they're removing that, there is no justification. There's no moral, legal, spiritual, any person with any human conscience at all could not sign off on that. So, but that's what it is. It is punitive because they just had the nerve to be here. And beyond that, it is inviting violence that really could destroy, even end their lives, which makes it even more traumatizing because that may be why they were here to start with, to get away from that somewhere else. So yeah, this level of, I don't care about any your opinions about this or that, or your politics or religion or whatever. These are people. And when you single out people to be raped and to help facilitate that happen, to be tortured, to be tormented, I'm a universalist. I don't believe in hell. Moments like this make me angry that I don't believe in hell, because the worst hell you could dream up would be too good for the people who have set this up.
The cruelty is the point. I think that's the whole gist of it, is that, they just really want to penalize people for being their authentic selves. Even if they don't agree with their expression of being their authentic self, they want to hurt them. And I don't see this as any other excuse other than this is just another way of hurting marginalized communities. And I'm not with this. And I think that is absolutely reprehensible. Not to get too religious, but there are certain things that are in league with, with forces of darkness or and I just think that this is, if there is such thing as sin, it is an absolute sin what this administration is doing to marginalized communities.
Well, that is the sin. Sin, the universe, God, the great mother, or whatever, couldn't care less that I smoked weed or said a swear or but what sin is when you hurt other people and when you do it intentionally.
You do it knowing.
That's
sin. Absolutely.
There are some detainees and there's also some people in jail, but they still have basic human rights. We need to protect their basic human rights. All these people we're in charge of them, because they're in our country, whether, detainees or in prison. We need to protect these people, not, turn the dogs on them and let them, loose and let them fend for themselves. That's just not right.
And let's get started on the commodification, the commercialization of prisons. These are private prisons who now don't even have to provide basic safety to their prisoners, some of whom haven't done anything wrong. They just got caught being a place that we decided they shouldn't be, that they didn't come through properly or do the paperwork or whatever. Meanwhile, they've committed usually no other crime at all.
Right.
They're still entitled to due process. And people who show up seeking asylum at the border, that's legal. Right. So there's just so many layers of just rottenness. And so if what bothers me, okay, yes, they're evil. And yes, people who either share those values or turn a blind eye to them and put them in power. But then on top of that, religious communities who then defend it. There was a woman just a few weeks ago shot in the face in Minneapolis, and religious people immediately started defending the shooter. Like, this woman in her car is killed, and somehow that was not universally condemned. Now, of course, a lot of people condemn. There's still some good humans in the country, but that's where we are, that religious people take up for the oppressor rather than the oppressed. That's sin. And that is blaspheming the gospel, because the gospel is meant to be good news to the poor and the marginalized. The poor is not only those who lack resources, they're those who lack dignity, protection, safety. The poor is those who experience lack. And so the gospel is meant to be good news for them. So if you're a religious community and you are celebrating the people who are bad news for them, that is not the gospel.
But the whole world just look at the United States as some place safe where they could be themselves and trust and go to be safe. And now, we're taking that away from everybody.
Yeah.
I would just like to say her name, Renee Good. I think that's a revolutionary act. Everybody's saying, say her name, and it's Renee Good. And let's not forget that this was a woman. She had a partner. She had a child. I think she might have had multiple children.
3 kids.
3 kids.
Yes. She was a queer mother.
She was a queer mother, and she, and it's really just a shame that she was doing her civic duty. And I don't like to use foul language, but I was listening to a commentator. Her crime was she was being a bitch in that moment, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that she was standing up to the powers that be.
Right.
They didn't like it, and she was executed, and her crime in their eye was she was a bitch, and she deserved to die.
And if someone was trying to open your car door, wouldn't you try to drive away?
Absolutely.
That's just impulse.
Absolutely.
And to make it worse, all of this is horrible. I think she had an elderly dog in the car too.
Yeah.
So even a pet is endangered. This is a school zone in a residential area. Why are you firing a gun anyway? This person, I don't know what his consequence will be, but it will not be enough, whatever it is.
I don't think there is going to be a consequence. They've given him what seems to be immunity. They've called her a terrorist, and we just have to wait for the winds of change and people protesting and getting angry enough, and just making their voices heard that Project 2025 is real, and this is all part of that, and the cruelty is the point. She was backing up very gingerly. There's people that I've seen, on these videos on TikTok and Instagram where people are doing reckless things in their car. She was probably going 5 to 10, maybe not even 10 miles an hour as she backed up to make a 3-point turn to get out of there. And, it's devastating, because I might have never have known her in my lifetime. She was just one person, but knowing that she died because the powers that be just don't like a strong woman, calling them out or witnessing their crimes. It's a cautionary tale for what happens when government overreaches.
And she was there as a witness. To make sure that the overreach that took her life did not happen.
Exactly. And she was caught up in that herself, and it's devastating.
So I know we got a little bit away from the detention centers, but it's all of a piece.
It is.
Because it's the same administration, it's the same attitude, it's the same people defending all of the evilness. And then when I talk about it as a clergy person, I will be accused of you're being political. This is not my politics, this is my theology. My theology is, if that's what you are, if that's what you behave like, if you have no more decency about you than that, my theology is that you're a piece of shit. That's not my politics, that's my religion. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by sharing them and subscribing to Queer News Tonight.